college football all day. It's a Football Friday right here on The Zone. Whether it's the Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, we've got you covered. This is a Football Friday edition of Hans Olsen and Scotty G, presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hey, Thanksgiving's coming up, so make sure to get your turkey and have it cooked, smoked to perfection. Kenny J's Barbecue is going to take the stress out of Thanksgiving. Go to kennyjbbq.com, get your turkey, and you can just pick it up on Thanksgiving morning, and you're good to go.
The things you deal with as a dad.
Yeah, dude, you're preaching to the choir on that one, but not quite. I'm not quite dealing with what you're dealing with right now.
Yeah. Well, what can you say?
You say yes, I guess.
Yeah. That's what I always say.
Yeah. Shehan Jeyarajah, kind enough to join us from CBS College Football, Big 12 Insider, kind enough to hang out again. Shehan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on.
It's always good to chat with you. All right, so the Big 12, it looks like Texas Tech has got a firm grasp on this conference, but there's this jockeying for number 2 who might be playing Texas Tech in a championship game. Right now, who do you feel like is your odds-on favorite for that spot?
Yeah, I'm not overthinking it. It's still BYU to me. They obviously only have one loss overall and in conference play, and they still have a couple opportunities that obviously they have to get through with TCU and Cincinnati, two pretty good teams, but I think that people are undervaluing BYU because of what happened on Saturday against a team that I think will maybe be in the Final Four teams in college football. I think Texas Tech is really good, but I think that BYU is also really good. So still give me BYU to make it, though obviously there are a couple other teams still in the mix.
So, Shehan, as you diagnose this conference and you look at the college football playoffs, the current landscape of the top 25, is this a 1-bid, is it a 2-bid, or is it a 3-bid league?
I think they're in good shape to be a 2-bid league. So when you look at the standings right now, obviously, there are 3 teams in the top 13. Two of the teams ahead of them at least, are likely to lose in Texas and Oklahoma. Texas goes on the road to Georgia this weekend. Oklahoma goes on the road to play Alabama. So let's just say, for hypothetical sake, that those two teams essentially get knocked out. Well, I mean, again, the next team out there is going to be BYU, and BYU has a couple opportunities left. Again, let's say that they beat Cincinnati, which is a top 25 team right now. Let's say they beat TCU, which is a top 40 team right now. I think it's going to be very hard, even if they lose a Big 12 title game, to keep them out of the mix. Now, let's say that BYU loses another one of those games, and maybe you get Utah in the Big 12 title game, or maybe Utah is the first team out of the Big 12 title game, and they end the season at 10-2. Well, I think that Utah, with the way that the committee has treated them and respected them, would still be in very good shape to step up into that spot. So I think that right now the league is in good shape to get to, but again, you just never know how the committee is going to feel things out.
So we're just looking at a bunch of different alternatives. Let's say BYU plays Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game, and Texas Tech wins that game again convincingly, same score, 29-7, and Utah runs the table and continues to blow out opponents for the final 3 games of the year. Could Utah be the beneficiary of not playing in a Big 12 championship game and maybe sliding in over BYU?
Look, anything is possible, like you said, but I think that's very difficult for me to see, because in that scenario, like obviously BYU would pick up a second loss on conference championship weekend, yes. But heading into that weekend, I mean, they'd be a one-loss team. And we saw SMU last year when they lost to Clemson. They essentially were not punished by the committee because, just to be frank, it is an existential issue if the committee punishes a team for making it to the postseason. That's not something that I think they're going to want to do, and I don't think that's something that they should do, to be frank. So if you're treating it like that, right, you're talking about an 11-1 BYU team versus a 10-2 Utah team, where the 11-1 team has a head-to-head victory over the other. Now, let's be clear. The analytic systems, really love Utah. They think that Utah is a much higher quality team than BYU. And frankly, I mean, if I was advising Kalani Sitake, I would tell him, man, you got to lay the hammer in some of these early season games, right? And I think back to that West Virginia game where the game was totally over, but nominally it was 42-28. Like, those are the kind of games. No, man, you just got to make him 49-7. Like you just have to. But that's beside the point. I think that ultimately it is just way too hard to think that they would move a team with more losses in the regular season and a head-to-head loss against the other team over that other team.
Shehan, are you kind of getting a feel for any names or individuals that might be taking that Oklahoma State job, and you feeling like there's any other hot seats in the Big 12?
Well, I think for Oklahoma State, like, the name to beat is Eric Morris at North Texas. It just feels, frankly, to me, too obvious. So, he's from West Texas. He played at Texas Tech. He is a very Big 12-y coach, in my opinion, coming from the air raid background. He was at, of course, at North Texas. He was on Texas Tech staff under Cliff Kingsbury. He played a part in developing Patrick Mahomes. It just feels like such an obvious and natural transition from Mike Gundy to go to somebody else. And for people who don't know, like, West Texas is not that far from Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's a little bit like in the western part of Oklahoma. So, like, that is, again, kind of a natural connection point, let's call it. So, to me, he is the obvious candidate to beat. Now, what becomes interesting is if one of these Texas jobs open. I think that Baylor's situation is, frankly, bizarre right now after the whole athletic director situation. And talking to some people around campus, they think that maybe the athletic director being in turmoil means that you can't make a coaching change on this timeline. As somebody who obviously has been around Baylor for a long time, I think that would be a really bad situation to bring this coaching staff back, but they might kind of be forced into it in some way. So I think that that's certainly a job to keep an eye on. But, I think of the others that kind of you would think might make a coaching change. I think that, Utah, if they have a good finish to the season, I think that's Kyle Whittingham. It's not exactly a secret, is probably close to ready to retire. I think that Colorado with Deion Sanders, with the way that some things have gone, and also his health situation, similar sort of deal. And then it just becomes a question of, do any other coaches get poached? I think that the obvious one would be Matt Campbell at Iowa State. But we've been saying that for just about 5 years at this point, and he's still at Iowa State. So those would be the ones to most keep an eye on, I'd say.
Are you surprised? And by the way, I am turning into a big Luke Fickell fan because I love a university that says, no, you know what? We're not going to overreact. We're going to let this guy do his thing. Were you surprised that Wisconsin's holding on to their coach?
Yeah, I was, to be honest, because, you talk about some of the losses that they've had this year. I mean, they have had some of the worst losses in the history of Wisconsin football. But, there's a couple pieces to this, right? You kind of allude to it. I think, I want to pick my words carefully, but I think that this is the moment that coaches are probably less valuable than they've ever been in the history of college football. And what I mean by that is, you are so dependent on investment by your athletic department from a player acquisition perspective. If you don't have a certain amount of money to work with, it doesn't really matter what you're doing as a head coach. Now, I think that Luke Fickell has not done a great job as a head coach. On top of that, I think that he's made some choices at offensive coordinator that have clearly not worked out, and he's going to have to figure some of that out. But I do think that, if you're Wisconsin, if you fire him right now, then the next guy is taking over a total crater of a program. That's a tough position to be in. And two, you're doing it minus $25 million in buyout money. So, I don't think that anybody in Madison right now is especially thrilled with the fact that Luke Fickell is going to be back. But, a dynamic that I've kind of pointed to a lot is the idea that there has been the kind of SEC mindset of fire, out. And there's been the Big Ten mindset of let's build something, let's have some patience. And I think that it's kind of heartening to see that the Big Ten, despite, the James Franklin situation, is still very much a patience development type conference. And when you look at the fact that two Big Ten teams have won the last two national championships and that the top two teams in college football this year are from the Big Ten, I don't think it's a coincidence.
When you look at Baylor against Utah, TCU on the road against BYU, do you anticipate a Utah sweep there? And if there's a game that you think could be a problem for one of the in-state schools, what would it be?
Well, it's not going to be Utah against Baylor. Baylor, I think, is in really rough shape right now. And on top of that, you talk about the issues that Baylor has had. They cannot stop the run, and now they're going to go play Utah. That could be a disastrous game for Baylor. By the way, in the middle of all of this off-field turmoil with the athletic director and with them potentially being forced to bring Dave Aranda back. So I think that Utah has no worries whatsoever. I think TCU is a pretty high-quality team, to be frank. They're a team that is really good in the passing game. They've got a good quarterback in Josh Hoover. I think that they're better on defense than people realize. Not elite, but I think a solid unit. So I think that this game will probably be a little closer than people may like and may expect. But again, a big part of that is I think that TCU is a top 35 type team, whereas, Baylor's probably in the low 50s or 60s. So I think that matchup-wise, BYU's got a little bit more of their hands full, but it also would be a great opportunity for them to lay the hammer down against what, again, I think is a pretty decent opponent.
So you got Texas Tech and BYU in a rematch in the Big 12 championship with 3 weeks left.
Yes, that is correct.
And how do you see that game potentially playing out?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I think that there's a couple pieces. One, I honestly feel like BYU's offensive game plan heading into that game was not bad. Like, I felt like they actually did a good job of holding onto the ball, of drawing things out. But I think that the biggest thing that I hope that they learn from what happened in Lubbock, which I was obviously out there for, is you can't put training wheels on Bear Bachmeier. Like, you just have to let him go downfield. And look, we also saw moments where he made stuff happen and receivers had drops. And that just can't happen. You have to give your true freshman quarterback some help. But I actually didn't hate the way that they attacked the running game. I thought that they had more success than I expected them to. I thought that Bear Bachmeier extended plays in a big way. But you have to let him go downfield. You have to let him challenge a secondary that, relatively speaking, is the weakness of the Texas Tech defense. It's not a big weakness, but it is, I think, less good than their defensive front. So I think it's going to be closer. I think they're going to have a better plan. But at the same time, I just think that Texas Tech is one of those teams this year. I think that they're a legitimate top 5 in the country. I think that if some things break right, they could be playing for a national championship. I just think that they're too high-quality a team. So it's not going to be a blowout like it was in Lubbock, but I do think Texas Tech wins the Big 12.
Well, we appreciate it, Shehan. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the games this weekend. Let's do it again here soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Shehan Jeyarajah right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.